Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Luke Papala Show. We have a lot of things to talk about today, and we're going to start by talking about Matt Fradd, specifically his show Pints with Aquinas being acquired by the Daily Wire. There's a lot of backlash on the internet because of this, and we'll get into that in a second. But first, I want to talk about Matt Fradd and how I was introduced to Pints with Aquinas and what it means to me. First, I was introduced to Pints with Aquinas in 2023. I was in confession on a Saturday, and I was having a particularly tough time. And when I was talking to the priest, he mentioned Pints with Aquinas, specifically because I was talking about social media and how it was all very negative and it was really getting me to a bad place. So he mentions Pints with Aquinas, mentioned how they're on YouTube, very accessible, very popular with the Catholic community. It's a Catholic show. And so immediately what happened was after confession was over, I went outside in my car, picked up my phone, went to YouTube, found Matt Fradd. And I found Pints with Aquinas, immediately subscribed, and I became a fan. For the past couple of years, I've been a fan. And I haven't been a rabid watcher or rabid listener, but I watched the big videos, and I became a fan of his. Probably the biggest thing I liked was the video after Pope Francis passed away. And it was just Matt giving advice, talking about the summary of Pope Francis when he was the leader of the church, the good and the bad, but ultimately that we had to be, not hateful, not glad that he passed, obviously, because there were some statements that he made and some of his decisions that he made that were at times kind of contradictory to what we Catholics believed. But he, all in all, was a force for good in telling us basically to appreciate Pope Francis for the life he lived and to pray for his soul. He has offered a lot of really good Catholic content. And the problem is, a lot of people view him going to the Daily Wire as a way that compromised him. And I'll show you what I mean. I'm pulling up a clip here of Matt Fradd announcing that he was going to be on the Daily Wire's new show, their collaborative show with Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klaven, called Friendly Fire. And he announced that he was going to be on Friendly Fire, and he cut a promo. And here's why a couple of people were more or less saying he sold out. Here we go.
Hey guys, Matt Fradd here. I want to make a response to some horrible accusations that are currently being leveled against me and my podcast. Since I announced that I would be joining the Daily Wire, people online have been saying, Matt's sold out, Matt's compromised. Pints with Aquinas, is not going to be the way it used to be. And that's just not true. It's going to be awesome. It's only going to get better. And honestly, Daily Wire has only been good to me. They haven't asked me to do anything I'm uncomfortable with. Maybe I have to move to Nashville. Maybe I have to undergo one minor surgery. It's just the tip. And that's not even the point. The point is the podcast. I believe that if you stick with me, you'll agree that it's going to be, it is going to be better than it's ever been. Liam.
So, a couple things to address there. First, Matt is talking about Pints with Maimonides, and it was a joke. Now, who was Maimonides? Maimonides is one of the foundational rabbis, philosophers in the Jewish religion. And again, this is relevant because Daily Wire is more or less an Israeli company, more or less a Jewish company. Not a bad thing. It's simply the truth. But who was Maimonides? Well, I have the AI overview right here, and we're going to put that here on the screen for you. And we're going to zoom in right here because I want you all to see this in plain sight. Here we go. It says, this is from Google's AI. Maimonides viewed Jesus as a failed Messiah who caused great harm to the Jewish people, leading to their persecution and the distortion of the Torah. He also believed Christianity was a form of idolatry and that Jesus' movement was a stumbling block. So, we have that information right there. Here's the problem with that. So you have Matt Fradd, who is making a joke, Pints with Maimonides. I don't believe that's a joke. I don't believe somebody who viewed Christianity as idolatry should be invoked or it should be talked about lightly. At the end of the day, Matt Fradd's Pints with Aquinas show is designed to be a Catholic show. He's a Catholic. He's an outspoken Catholic. And I don't think that's something that should be joked about. Obviously, he had the yarmulke on the head. It is what it is. It was a joke. Okay? I understand where he's going with that, but I don't think it was a good attempt of humor. I think it was a cheap attempt at humor. So he's talking about how, people are saying, and he made obviously the joke about just a tip being cut off, whatever, maybe he has to perform surgery, blah, blah, blah. People are saying that he may be compromised because he potentially sold out, because we know what the Daily Wire is. We know who runs the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro. We know what he said about Jesus Christ in the past. And we understand that, once again, a Catholic show, bringing all of these young Catholics, a lot of them to the church, being under the umbrella of the Daily Wire, it just didn't sit well with a lot of people. A lot of people were really upset, including myself, because I don't like the direction it's going. Okay, so we understand that. Now I want to point you to this clip. So this is Andrew Klaven, and now Matt Fradd is on friendly fire with the Daily Wire, right? And Andrew Klaven proceeds to attack Matt Fradd and the Catholic Church in this clip. So we're going to play it for you. Here we go.
Klaven,
Well,
you texted me and said that there are more Catholics at Daily Wire than at the Vatican, and I wasn't sure if you knew that may have been a dark joke about the Vatican or not, but it was a good one.
I actually am impressed that the Catholics are actually getting nicer. I mean, I actually like Matt, which is as opposed to these guys, and it is getting to be. It's like the Vatican except for straight people. It's so it's really it's really exciting.
There's the clip.
And so you just heard what Andrew Klaven said. Now, understand Andrew Klaven is Jewish by ethnicity. It's just what it is. But he is somebody who is an evangelical. I believe he's non-denominational Christian, converted. But then again, he just attacked the Catholic Church, saying there's more straight people at the Daily Wire than the Catholic Church. And Matt Fradd just has to take it. And it's odd. And you see Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles, who are also Catholic, particularly Matt Walsh, and he's on the top right of that clip. And it looks like he's just forced to endure. It doesn't look like he's having a great time. The problem with all of this is that you already had millions of young people across the country flocking to Christianity, but a lot of them are flocking to the Catholic faith. And having it under the control of these people, the Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, to an extent, Andrew Klaven, definitely, Matt Walsh a little bit less than, somebody like a Jeremy Boring. And they talk about the people in Gaza in particular, and it's this culture of like the people in Gaza, no matter what they are, they all deserve to die. And that's not a Christian doctrine. It's not a Christian belief. Not even Michael Knowles. It is the other three, though. It's not a Christian belief. So when you have one of the largest, if not the largest, Catholic show for young people online, and now they're under this umbrella that it doesn't really preach those values. It doesn't really give those ideas off. I don't know if it's very helpful. It doesn't seem like it's a very productive thing. Now, I understand Matt Fradd probably made a lot of money from this. Definitely made a lot of money. But understand another angle of what's happening. So you had the Daily Wire. They've had this really big problem ever since Candace Owens was ousted. The Israel critical wing of the Daily Wire, it doesn't exist. Understand that. Understand that people like Ben Shapiro, people like Andrew Klaven are Israel first, and they've said that bluntly. If you watch their content for the past 2 years, you see that they're now calling for things that aren't in America's best interest, but they live in America. But their audience is based in America. Yet they're calling for things that don't benefit the American people at all, but they benefit Israel, a foreign country. When you combine that with the fact that we know they're losing money, there's been reports that they're going bankrupt. I don't think that's true, but if you look at Ben Shapiro's views compared to somebody like a Candace Owens, compared to somebody like a Nick Fuentes, for example, who he tried to strangle in the crib 10 years ago, and it completely backfired, and now he's bigger. It's just not looking good. He has videos that don't even go over 1 million views anymore, Ben Shapiro. And I think the Daily Wire at large knew this. Jeremy Boring left as the CEO. There were problems, right? We see that. We see the disagreements between Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro on topics like Israel and foreign aid. And you see that their influence is starting to wane. Now, combine this with the fact that Gen Z also sees this. And we also see that this non-American first, this Israel first agenda, it's not benefiting us. You go outside, you look at your community, and your community is deteriorating. And then you see the United States sending Israel $4 billion annually. And then when you talk about the war over the past years, it's close to $20 billion. The problem with this is these funds, these taxpayer funds that we're paying for, could be allocated in our communities to stop the deterioration, to change the infrastructure, to build more buildings, make things nicer, make things better for you and for our communities. But we see that they're crumbling, and we see that this other country on the complete opposite side of the world is getting all this money, and it makes us mad. And when somebody like a Ben Shapiro, Andrew Klaven's irrelevant, but somebody like a Ben Shapiro continues to just go against everything that we're seeing, it makes him mad. And he lost a lot of influence. So this could be a power move, if you think about it, to sort of regain that influence, but I personally see right through it. And it doesn't make sense to me why somebody like Matt Fradd would do this. Yeah, so that's just, it's crazy. So we'll see how that goes. I'm a little bit optimistic just because Matt Fradd has more money now, higher budget to make a better show. But I mean, your boss is Ben Shapiro, so things can't be that great. There's probably going to be a cap on what this guy is going to say, and it's very unfortunate. But I wanted to stay on track talking about the Daily Wire and talking about the most irrelevant member of that crew, Andrew Klaven. So this wasn't the first time yesterday that he ended up attacking the Catholic Church and attacking Christianity as a whole. Listen to what he does when he compares Christianity, and particularly the resurrection, and crucifixion, to the Holocaust.
Let me tell you what the Holocaust was, and this will drive some of you crazy, but it's true. The Holocaust was the crucifixion on IMAX. It was for those who missed the point the first time that this is who we are. This is who people are, that we will take God. If you don't think that Jesus bled when little children were led into a gas chamber, you don't know who Jesus Christ is. I don't care what you say. I don't care how many times you tell me Christ is king. You do not understand what is going on. You know, when you pour the... Let me tell you what the Holocaust was.
He said the Holocaust was the crucifixion on IMAX. On one hand, you have this awful event where a large group of people of an ethnic group were obviously targeted, no doubt. We're going to debate the numbers? No. But they were obviously targeted, and they weren't the only group in these camps. Like, there were other ethnic groups, but we forget those ethnic groups all of a sudden when it comes to this topic. They were obviously persecuted because of their ethnicity and their religion, okay? On the other hand, you have the savior of the human race that was not just killed by Jewish people, was also killed by the Gentiles, the Romans, and was hung on a cross for being the Messiah, for being the Son of God, and endured the most torture any human arguably has ever endured. And he died for our sins so that we could all have a chance in heaven. I don't think those two instances are comparable. Maybe I'm missing something. But I think it's a little bit blasphemous as a Christian, a self-proclaimed Christian, Andrew Klaven, to say that the Holocaust was the crucifixion on IMAX. I think it's just a little odd. I think it's a little bit disrespectful. Frankly, this is a good example of why Andrew Klaven, he's the least watched member of the Daily Wire. It's so crazy to see the gall of these people, to see the pompousness, to put this one historical event, which was a tragedy, no doubt, at the highest pedestal that they could possibly put it at. I don't like embracing this victimhood mentality. It was a tragedy, no doubt. But comparing it to the crucifixion, it's blasphemous, and I don't like it at all. And I'm going to read a couple of the comments as well. We're not going to put these on screen, but I'm nevertheless, I will play it for you.
This will drive some of you crazy, but it's true.
I will play it for you here, or I won't play it for you, actually. So we're going to read these people, right? One person says, these people are twisted. They've completely lost the plot. Thankfully, they openly expose themselves, though. True. Another person, they never lost the plot because they've been following their own plot to begin with. Well, that's even more true. Sad I grew up on the greats like Andrew, Matt, Knowles, Shapiro, Candace, Kirk, Prager, you, Crowder, all of them. To see them act like this now in this moment of the time really made me question their stances on America's values, morals, and virtues. America's values, morals, and virtues do not get stepped over to appease anything or anyone else. America shouldn't and will not live in the shadow of the Holocaust. Last I checked, the Holocaust happened in Germany, not America, so why is it used as if it happened here? Very true. Very good point. One more here. We have another one. So this comment says, the man who supports his gay son's lifestyle is lecturing us on what is and isn't Christian behavior in such a way that it diminishes Christ's sacrifice to the cross and favors his own group's perceived persecution. Zero humility. That was true. Again, this self-proclaimed Christian has the gall to lecture actual Christians about what Christianity is. Now, I'm not somebody to judge if Andrew Klaven is really a Christian or not. He's a self-proclaimed Christian, so he's Christian, okay. But to support a lifestyle that isn't very much lining up with what Christianity is, and then to turn around and lecture us on what Christianity is, I don't think you have the place to do that, sir. It's just my opinion, but I'm not a fan, and I've never been a fan. Even before the Daily Wire became this organization that was so obviously pro-Israel first, so obviously against the values and the goals that it fought for a decade in free speech. I never liked him to begin with. He was never particularly interesting to me. But what a mask-off moment for him, and what a mask-off moment for the Daily Wire, too. I'm just not a fan. But I do have one more clip. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode today. Apologies if that's not your thing. But we've been talking about this for a while, and I'm going to talk about it again. Gen Z is the most conservative generation that we've had in a long time. We understand this and we know this. And in fact, Jake Tapper and the New York Post know this. And we're going to read this story to you. So here we go. The title. CNN's Jake Tapper says Gen Z will be, quote, a lot more conservative after schools forced lefty politics down their throats. By Taylor Herzich. Here we go. CNN's Jake Tapper predicted that Gen Zers will be a lot more conservative than previous generations, and he blames schools for forcing progressive politics down their throats. The lefty host of The Lead with Jake Tapper warned that Democrats are failing to win over Americans aged 13 to 28. Quote, I think Gen Z is going to be a lot more conservative, he said Wednesday on the Reason Interview podcast with Nick Gillespie, editor-at-large of Reason magazine. Just my experience knowing Gen Z kids, my kids and their friends, and whatever, I sense much more skepticism. And I think it is a reaction to Gen Xers and millennials forcing on them progressive views in school, said Tapper, who has two teenagers. The journo, who got heavy backlash from Dems over his book about former President Joe Biden's mental decline, took aim at specific lefty movements that might have pushed Gen Zers away. Quote, I also think it's a reaction to the failures of progressive movements to achieve what they wanted to achieve, whether it's Bernie Sanders, whether it's BLM, whether it's Me Too, Tapper said. I think it's COVID. I think it's a lot of progressive politics being forced down their throats in school. Tapper still got in a dig at President Trump. Quote, but then Trump did not win young voters, as he constantly said he did. But he did do better with them than previous Republicans. Okay, so, I mean, this is it. He obviously got to something. There's a point here. Young people actually did break with President Trump, particularly young men. Young Gen Z men are the ones that won Trump over. But he hasn't been winning us over as of late because we're strongly conservative. We view Trump as a moderate. Trump is somebody who is not being America first. And we've protested this on the show numerous times, and we're going to continue to hold his feet to the fire. But Jake Tapper makes a good point. When you have all of these left-wing, extremely progressive agendas forced down your throats in school, whether that's the Me Too movement, whether that is the BLM, whether it's the Pride movement, the LGBTQ movement, all of that stuff. And it's not that the kids wouldn't have even got to these points naturally. But we talk about this all the time. The Democratic Party had a layup with young people. They always have a layup with young people. Their policies are they're designed, quite literally designed to appeal to young people. Whether you have the Medicare for All, for example. It's increasingly more expensive to have health care in this country. And young people getting off their parents' plans are just experiencing all of that. Whether that's any of the free programs. Young people are struggling right now. It would be an incentive to get onto these free programs and be able to start your life. But it seems that they've messed up so bad. Young people have always went with the Democrats. For generations have went with the Democrats, and then over time, as you get older, you become a Republican. That's just how it goes. But they had to mess up so bad. I mean, think of it. It's like if you're Angel Reese and you have a wide open layup, and this is something she does often. You have a wide open layup, fast break, all 9 other players on the opposite side of the basketball court. You're Angel Reese, you get a steal. You're going up to the hoop. Nobody is within 30 feet of you. You're taking it up, and you miss the layup. That's what the Democratic Party did. I mean, you think about young men. Young men are driving this, by the way. Young Gen Z men are driving this. And here's how to kind of quantify it if you don't understand. You have a generation of men, myself in particular, that grew up in their formative years. They're teenagers from like 2014, I'd say even 2012 to 2025, right? You're a teenager in that early time, and then you grow up to an adult in that time. In this particular time, 10 to 12 years, you have masculinity, a war on masculinity, any type of masculinity being called toxic. You have the Me Too movement, which prioritized women over men. If you remember the future is female, that was the big quote. This excluded men from a lot of spaces, and it really demonized men who weren't trying to be these awful people that the stories were about in the news. So you had things like that. And then on top of that, you had just a more left-leaning culture, something that was not as, how would I say it, accepting of young men as it was in the past. The world wasn't exactly set up for these young men, and you see it now. Young men are unemployed more. Young men are the ones that are killing themselves much more. They're suffering, and nobody seems to be helping them. Institutions like the Democratic Party that would have helped them in the past have completely abandoned them. And so as a result, you see them becoming more conservative. You see them saying, hey, like, these things aren't supposed to benefit me. When you have all of these systems that are designed to be at these people's throats, what are you expecting? In addition to that, you've had celebrities, media figures in the past, and even currently, that are calling these young men Nazis. When that's not true, these kids just have conservative opinions now that you've blackballed them. You've really alienated them from your party. So what's that going to do? They're going to internalize that. That's going to make them a little bit more irrational. I mean, no question. If you continue to call a particular group whatever it is, over time they're eventually going to internalize that and believe it. So Jake Tapper makes a very good point, and he's a little bit late to the party. We've been talking about this on the show for a long time, but it's just something that it's very important to know this and to understand exactly what we're dealing with. Because I believe Gen Z, we're going to solve a lot here. We're going to kind of correct the imbalance of power in this country, and we're hopefully going to turn out a lot of people and create a lot of voices in the coming years to fix the country. Because right now, the whole thing, regardless if you're a Gen Z woman or Gen Z man, the country is not working. We understand this. Again, look outside. Things are not going well. The median age of a first-time home buyer in America now is 38. 10 years ago, it was 30. That's a big problem. We cannot get homes. A lot of us cannot buy anything. A lot of us can't even rent because they can't afford the rent. It's a problem. And hopefully we're going to be able to fix it here, but who knows? So, not to black pill, but yeah, I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of hope for Gen Z. I have a lot of hope for what we're going to do in this country, and hopefully we can turn it around. But yeah, so I won't be watching Pints with Aquinas anytime soon, but if the content is good, then I will be back. But that's all. So, have a great one. Thank you all for watching. Please remember to subscribe. I keep forgetting to say that. Please remember to subscribe. Give the video a like, a comment. We're running memberships now for as low as 99 cents per month. You could support the Luke Papala Show. You could support Innocent Villains. You can support me and the channel. We will make better stuff for you, I promise. We're already delivering on that promise, and we're going to continue to do so. So thank you, and have a good one.